Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Bhagyalakshmi, Assistant Professor in the Department of Textiles and Clothing. Today, I am going to take the topic on fashion dynamics, and it deals with the terminology, components, principles and environment of fashion. Fashion is a force. It's a powerful force constantly altering patterns of change and growth. Its movement affects the expression of the designers and the manufacturers who distribute it. Webster defines fashion as prevailing custom, usage or style, and in this sense it influences all. Fashion has far-reaching effects around the world. It means the style or styles of clothing and accessories prevailing at a particular time. Fashions today is a big business. Millions of people are employed either in the fashion industries or in the fashion business. Fashion industries at present concentrate on wider range of merchandise categories from baby wear to adult wear. Textile and fashion related industries are mushrooming day by day and produce apparel goods. Moreover, home textile products and also accessories are also produced by these industries for men, women and children. Hence, there is a good scope for students who learn fashion and textile designing in different sections of industries. In this context, the learner should study the terminologies, components and principles of fashion. The terminologies of fashion. So, fashion is a complex subject that fascinates the entire world and has been studied throughout history. In the study of fashions today, certain words and phrases are used often. They are high fashion, mass fashion, style, design, taste, classic and fad. Fashion is a style that is accepted and used by the majority of group at one time. It is accepted by a group of people with similar interests or characteristics. For example, the fashion consciousness of college-going students, adolescents, career-oriented men and women. Fashion can also be categorized according to the group to which they appeal. High fashion refers to those styles or designs accepted by a limited group of fashion leaders, the elite among consumers who are first to accept fashion's change. High fashion styles or designs are generally introduced and sold in small quantities and at relatively high prices to entertainers and fashion innovators. On the other hand, mass fashion or volume fashion refers to those styles or designs that are widely accepted. These fashions are usually produced and sold in large quantities at moderate to low prices and appeal to the greatest majority of fashion conscious consumers. Style is the next component. A style is a characteristic or distinctive mode of presentation. It is a conceptualization in a particular field. It is the characteristic or distinctive appearance of a garment, the combination of features that makes it different from other garments. Some people adopt a style and wear it regardless of current fashion. Some styles are named for the period of history in which they originated, that is Grecian, Roman, Renaissance and then Empire style of the early 19th century, which featured a waistline cinched high above under the bust. Minor details are also altered to reflect the taste or needs of the era. The style can still be brought today, but with modifications for current fashion acceptance. Next one is design. A design is a specific version of a style. The skirt, for example, is a style in women's apparel. Many variations in which the skirt is available are the gort, A-line, box pleated, knife pleated and so on. A pant is also a style. The variation in length and width constitute the various designs of the pant. Manufacturers usually produce several designs or variations of a popular style. You can very well view in the slide. Taste can be defined as the ability to distinguish that makes for excellence at a particular time in a particular circumstances. In fashion, taste refers to an individual opinion of what is and what is not attractive and appropriate for a given occasion. Good taste in fashion therefore means sensitivity not only to what is artistic but also to what is appropriate for specific situation. A style may be beautiful, and if inappropriate to the particular circumstance, it may not be considered in good taste. Good taste essentially is making the most artistic use of current fashion, that is bridging the gap between good art and the common usage. The next thing is a classic one. Some styles or designs continue to be considered in good taste over a long period of time. A classic design satisfies a basic need and remains in general fashion acceptance for an intended period of time. A classic style is characterized by simplicity of design as well as the length of time in fashion. For example, sari and salwar kameez have been a classic fashion dresses for so many years. Fad is a next kind of fashion. It is a sudden fashion that sweeps into popularity, affecting relatively few of the total population and then quickly disappear. Fads follow the fashion cycle and their rise in popularity is much faster and acceptance is much shorter. You can view few examples in the slide. Fads can come and go in a single season. Fads are usually an exaggerated design which may not attract consumers that easily. For example, netted garments. Next section of this module is components of fashion. Fashion design does not happen immediately, and it is not the designer's magic wand to create a new design. Fashion design involves the combination of 4 basic elements or components. They are silhouette, detail, texture, and color. A change in one or more of these basic components brings out a new fashion. You can see examples in the following slides. The silhouette of a costume is its overall outline or a contour. It is also referred to as shape or form. Women have worn countless silhouettes throughout the centuries. However, there are actually only 3 basic forms, that is straight or tubular, bell-shaped or buffled, bustle or backfulness. The widespread sociological change and rapid technological advancements altered both the traditional lifespan and sequence of these silhouettes. Next component is a detail, the individual element that give a silhouette its form or shape. These include trimmings, skirt and pant length and width, shoulder, waist and sleeve treatments. Variation in details allow both the designers and consumers to present their individuality based on existing fashion. For example, an emphasizing belt for slender women and wider shoulder pads for a person with narrow shoulders. Texture is another component, one of the most significant component of the fashion. Texture is the look and feel of material that is woven or non-woven. Texture can affect the appearance of a silhouette, giving it a bulky or slender look depending on the roughness or smoothness of the material. Texture influences the drape of the garment. It affects the color of the fabric by causing the surface to either reflect or absorb light. Rough texture absorbs light, causing the colors to appear flat. Smooth textures reflect light, causing colors to appear brighter. The next component is color. Color has always been a major consideration in women's clothing. Today, color is a key factor in apparel selection for both sexes. Color has been importantly affected by developments in technology. It changes the appearance of a person. Today, fashion designers' color palette changes with consumers' preferences. The intangibles of fashion. A style is a tangible made up of a definite silhouette and details of design. But fashion is shaped by such intangibles as group acceptance, change, and the forces at work during a specific era, and people's desire to relate to certain lifestyles. We'll see one by one. First one is the acceptance. Group acceptance or approval is implied in any definition of fashion. An article of clothing may be innovative and aesthetically flawless. An article of clothing may be innovative and aesthetically flawless. It is not a fashion until it has been accepted and used by a substantial number of people. A style may also be accepted and become a fashion while it is ignored or rejected elsewhere. It also means that a fashion is considered appropriate for the occasion it is worn. Clothes worn for formal occasions are not at all acceptable for casual occasions. Next is the change. Fashion is subject to never-ending change, sometimes rapid and gradual. Women's apparel has always shown the most rapid rate of change. Until recently, men's fashion changed more slowly. The rate of fashion change in women's clothing has greatly accelerated over the last century, and in men's clothing over the last 40 years. The designers and manufacturers work at a faster means of producing garments in a greater variety of materials. Modern communication play a major role in today's accelerated rate of fashion change. The mass media spread fashion news across the face of globe in hours and sometimes in seconds. The third section of this module is the principles of fashion. These provide a solid foundation for fashion identification and forecasting. There are 5 principles of fashion that need to be studied. The fashion principles are framed based on the history of fashion, dissemination of fashion, or the fashion merchandising techniques. The first one is consumers establishes fashions by accepting or rejecting the styles offered. The consumer is the ultimate user. The person who uses the finished fashion garment is the consumer. Consumers decide when a style no longer appeals, and they determine which new styles will be favored. Among the many styles, manufacturers select the styles suitable for the season, and they believe that those styles will be successful. Retailers in turn choose style from manufacturers, and consumers at last is the decision maker to accept or reject certain styles. The second principle is fashions are not based on price. The second principle talks about the price, that is, fashions are not based on price. The price tag on any item of apparel or an accessory is no inclination whether item is currently in fashion. Also, items that were originally introduced at high price lines if they appear to have considerable consumer appeal. Later, the same style is sold at reasonable prices. However, the material, workmanship, and trimmings may vary in each and every apparel. The third one is fashions are revolutionary in nature, and they are rarely revolutionary. Fashion designers accept this principle. When developing new design ideas, they always keep the current fashion in mind. They know that few people could or would buy a whole new wardrobe every season, and the success of their designs ultimately depends on sales. Consumers will buy goods only if the purchase complements their existing wardrobe. The fourth one is no amount of sales promotion can change the direction in which the fashions are moving. Promotional effort on the part of producers or retailers cannot dictate what consumers will buy, nor can they force people to buy what they do not want. The few times that fashion merchants have tried to promote a radical change in fashion, but they have not been successful. Promotional effort cannot renew the life of fading fashion unless it gives a new appeal. Retailers try to push the merchandise in sales at a very lower prices. All fashions end in excess is the fifth principle. 18th century hoop skirt ballooned out to 8 feet in diameter, which made moving even from room to room a complicated maneuver. Similarly, mini skirts of the 1960s finally became too short that the slightest problem caused a major problem in the modesty. Once the extreme in style is reached, consumers look for newer styles. Next is the environment of fashion. In fashion merchandising, the environment of fashion differs from one part of the target to another part of the group. Therefore, it is to study about the conditions that affect a particular target customer's environment. There are 4 major environmental factors that affect fashion interest and demand. They are demographics and psychographics, the degree of economic development of a country or society, the psychological characteristics of the class structure, and lastly, the psychological attitudes of customers. Coming to the demographics and psychographics. Demographics are the studies that divide broad groups of customers into smaller, more homogeneous target segments, and the variables covered in a demographic study are population by regional, urban, suburban and rural population, age, sex, family life cycle, race, religion, nationality, education, occupation and income are also the demographic features studied. The psychographics are studies that develop fuller, more personal portraits of potential customers. Psychographic studies more fully predict customer purchase patterns and distinguish users of a product. The variables covered in a psychographic study are personality, attitude, interest and personal opinions, and also the actual product benefit desired. The second factor is the degree of economic development of a country or society. The growth of fashion demand depends on a high level of economic development, which is reflected in consumer income, population characteristics, and the extent of technological advances. Consumer income can be measured in terms of personal income, disposable income, and discretionary income. Many groups of people use the amount of personal income as an indicator of arriving in their particular social set. The personal income they have, the more socially acceptable and they consider themselves to be. Population deals with the majority of population has some discretionary income and thus can influence the course of fashion. Two factors relating to population have a direct impact on fashion demand. The size of the population also relates to the extent of current fashion demand. While the overall population continues to grow, the growth rate is not the same for all age groups and for both sexes. Since each group has its own special fashion interest, needs and reactions, changes in the age mix serve as vital clues to future fashion demand. Technological advances have also accelerated fashion demand. Improved spinning, weaving and knitting machines, mechanical and modern sewing machines, embroidery machineries, and high-speed textile processing and textile testing machineries have also accelerated the fashion demand. Improved agricultural techniques have resulted in more and better quality products in the areas of organic cottons. Rapid communication has become a most important medium for transmitting fashion information. Television informs us about fashion on a national and international level. Radio is an excellent medium through which local merchants can inform their audience of special fashion events. Improved trucks and superhighways and the growth of the air freights enhanced the fashion business. Instead of weeks, the transportation of goods from vendor to store now takes only hours instead of days. The third part is the sociological and characteristics of class structure. Changes in fashion are caused by changes in the attitudes of consumers, which are in turn influenced by changes in the social patterns of the times. The key sociological factors influencing the fashion today are leisure time, ethnic influences, status of women, social and physical mobility, and vast disasters and crises. The ways in which people use their leisure time are varied, and this has led to fashion movement. Retirement leisure travel of the people also enhanced the market for cosmetic aids and apparel that suits their ages, figures and new interests. Demand for larger and more versatile wardrobes due to much leisure time activities have increased. The market for casual apparel developed with the growth of suburbs. Casual look for men and women were acceptable in most of the formal places and occasions. Casual clothing remains an option for many people at work as well as at play. Sports-minded people demand apparel that was appropriate for sports-minded people demand apparel that was appropriate for sports and simply for relaxing. Health clubs, exercise classes, and workout gyms are in popularity due to fitness and health consciousness of people, and this has led to the demand for special outfits, suits, and dresses. The most dramatic advances have happened since the mid-1960s, and the women's demand for equal opportunity, equal pay, and equal rights in every facet of life have changed not only fashion but the entire field of marketing. Often, the better educated women are more willing to learn new things, and they are willing to try new fashions, which of course serves to accelerate fashion change. Perhaps the most marked change in the status of women in the early 1900s is the degree of social freedom they now enjoy. Women travel more frequently than they did in the past. Today's busy, active women, whether at home or at office, has very carefully defined preferences for fashion that suit their own individual needs and comforts. Most fashion authorities agree that there is a direct relationship between the growth and strength of the middle class and the growth and strength of the fashion demand. The middle class has the highest physical, social, and financial mobility because it is the largest class and it has the majority vote in the adoption of fashions. Members of the middle class tend to be followers, not leaders of fashion, but the strength of the fashion following pumps money into the fashion industry. Physical mobility like social mobility encourages the demand for fashion. The daily routine for many people involves driving to work or to a shopping center, often in a different city. Among the broad range of influences, they are exposed to different fashion during their daily trips and the fashion offerings of retail distributors. The traveler's trip exposes them to many different fashion influences, and each trip itself demands special fashion. Change of residence or moving to a new environment create new fashion influences. People also develop a need for fashions that are compatible with their altered attitudes and environments. There were great demand for warm clothes and jackets, scarves, leg warmers and vests and so on during some crisis. The last aspect is the psychological attitudes of customers. Fashion promises many things to many people. The basic psychological factors that influence fashion demand are boredom, curiosity, reaction to convention, need for self-assurance, and desire for companionship. People tend to become bored with fashions too long in use. Boredom leads to restlessness and a desire for change. In fashion, the desire for change expresses itself in a demand for something new and satisfying, different from what in fashion, the desire for change expresses itself in a demand for something new and satisfying, different from what one already has. Curiosity causes interest in change for its own sake. Highly curious people like to experiment. They want to know how color combinations change in line and details affect the look of a garment. People who consider themselves as well and fashionably dressed are self-assurance and carry themselves confidently. Feeling of People who consider themselves as well and fashionably dressed are self-confident and they carry themselves well. Feeling of inferiority could be overcome by proper selection and proper use of apparel. So far we have learnt about the terminologies of fashion, components of fashion and principles of fashion. Through this module, I am sure that you will have an understanding about the nature of fashion, comprising of fashion terminology, components, and why fashion is always subject to change. Also, the manners in which the economic, sociological, and psychological factors influence fashion demand. The common fashion terminologies in the fashion industry such as fashion, style, design, taste, classic, and fad are discussed with examples. We have also learnt about the components of fashion, which are considered as the essentials of fashion. Reasons for fashion change were also discussed. Hope this module has given an insight about the fashion dynamics in brief. Thank you.